Welcome to the channel. We're glad you've joined us today. If you haven't already, do consider subscribing to our channel for the latest political news and insights. Today, we're taking a look at a recent event that's caused quite a stir in the world of global politics. The Group of Seven, or the G7 as it's more commonly known, is a forum where the world's most influential and industrialized democracies come together to discuss and coordinate on major global issues. But the latest G7 summit was anything but routine. Picture this. The leaders of the free world are gathered in Canada, engaged in high-stakes discussions on global security and Ukraine. But in a move that leaves everyone in disbelief, President Donald Trump of the United States walks out, leaving his seat vacant. In a shocking turn of events, President Trump left the summit early, and President Zelenskyy of Ukraine took his place. President Trump's abrupt departure from the summit caught everyone by surprise. In the midst of the high-stakes G7 summit, Trump made the decision to leave early, missing crucial joint sessions that focused on Ukraine and global security. His reason? The escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. Yet the decision to duck out of the summit early sparked controversy and raised eyebrows. Critics were quick to weigh in, suggesting that the Israel-Iran conflict was merely a convenient distraction for the former US president. They argued that Trump was using this escalating conflict to sidestep the tough conversations, the firm commitments that were needed on Ukraine. His departure, they said, was a calculated move, a way to avoid putting himself and by extension the US in a position to make concrete promises. Trump's departure from the summit was unexpected, yes, but it also left a void. World leaders were suddenly left without a key player in their discussions, a gaping hole in their roundtable. And with the world watching, they were faced with a difficult decision: how to proceed without the representation of one of the world's most influential nations. The answer came in the form of President Zelenskyy of Ukraine. With Trump gone, the world leaders decided to invite Zelenskyy to fill the empty seat at the table, a decision that sent a clear message to the world. The symbolism of this moment was not lost on anyone. While Trump chose to exit, to avoid the difficult conversations, Zelenskyy stepped in, ready to face the challenges head-on. The contrast was stark, and the message clear. Trump was out, Zelenskyy was in. With Trump gone, world leaders were left with a difficult decision to make. But they didn't let Trump's unexpected departure derail their discussions. Instead, they chose to move forward, to continue their talks, with Ukraine at the table. They chose to face the challenges together, proving that the world does not revolve around one man, even if that man is the former President of the United States. In an unusual move, world leaders invited President Zelenskyy to take Trump's place at the table. This wasn't just a matter of rearranging the seating chart. It was a powerful statement of solidarity, a signal to the world that Ukraine would not be left out in the cold. President Zelenskyy, ever the diplomat, took the unexpected invitation in stride. He didn't just fill a chair, he stepped up, voicing Ukraine's concerns and ambitions with a level of clarity and commitment that was both refreshing and inspiring. The world leaders listened, and they responded. Canada, in particular, stepped forward with a pledge that made headlines. They committed to a whopping $2 billion in new military aid to Ukraine. This wasn't simply a financial transaction, it was a promise of support, a demonstration of allegiance, and a tangible commitment to Ukraine's future. The room echoed with murmurs of approval and nods of respect as Zelenskyy laid out his vision for Ukraine. But amidst the buzz, there was also a silence, a conspicuous absence that was impossible to ignore. The United States, once a beacon of global leadership, was not there. Trump's chair was empty. There were no new pledges, no promises of support, no grand gestures of solidarity. The US had no voice in this critical conversation about Ukraine's future. The world leaders continued their discussions. They made their commitments, but the silence from the US was deafening. Zelenskyy, undeterred, stood firm, representing his nation with dignity and determination. But the absence of the US in this crucial discussion was glaringly obvious. The elephant in the room was the empty chair where Trump should have been, the hollow echo where the U.S. quote, S voice should have been heard. The world watched as Zelenskyy stepped up, but it also watched as Trump, and by extension the United States, stepped out. The question on everyone's lips, what does this mean for Ukraine and what does it mean for the world? this story is far from over. Trump's exit marked another low point in the U.S. S global leadership. The repercussions of his departure echoed around the world, and nowhere more so than in Ukraine. The US, once a staunch supporter of Ukraine's sovereignty, appeared to be backing away, leaving a void that other nations were scrambling to fill. Let's not forget that Canada, despite being a smaller player on the international stage, pledged a staggering $2 billion in new military aid. A remarkable pledge, no doubt, but one that also highlighted the conspicuous absence of a similar commitment from the United States. The US offered nothing. No new weapons, no new sanctions, no real plan. As the other leaders rallied around Ukraine, offering support and solidarity, the US was conspicuously absent. The nation that had once led the charge was now sitting on the sidelines. The implications of this disengagement cannot be overstated. It's not just about the immediate impact on Ukraine, but also the long-term consequences for global security. The U.S. withdrawal sends a message to the world that it's no longer interested in playing the role of global leader. And let's be clear, this isn't just about Trump. It's about a shift in US foreign policy that has been brewing for years. A shift away from engagement, away from leadership, away from the idea that the US has a responsibility to uphold the rules-based international order it helped to create. The G7, traditionally a powerhouse of the world's most developed economies, felt more like a G6 with the U.S. CES absence. The dynamic had changed, the balance had shifted, and the world was watching, wondering what would come next. And Ukraine? Once again, it was left standing alone. In the face of Russian aggression in the midst of a global crisis, Ukraine needed a friend. But the US, traditionally its most reliable ally, had walked away. This was the aftermath of Trump's abrupt departure, a world left wondering, a Ukraine left standing alone. The question now is, what happens next? This incident leaves us with a pressing question. Can the world really afford a US president who walks out on Ukraine and on the globe stage? What does this mean for the international community when the leader of one of the most powerful nations leaves the table amidst discussions of such significance? Consider the implications of this situation. Trump's departure sent a message that can't be ignored. It suggested that the United States, under his leadership, was willing to step back from its responsibilities on the world stage. It showed a lack of commitment to Ukraine, a nation that has been struggling to maintain its independence in the face of unrelenting pressure. Now think about the ripple effect. When the United States withdraws, other countries might follow suit. The resulting power vacuum could lead to instability and conflicts, potentially transforming the geopolitical landscape in ways that are hard to predict. Moreover, this incident raises questions about the U.S. role in global leadership. If the US isn't ready to lead, who will? And more importantly, what kind of world will we end up with if the US continues to abdicate its leadership role? On another note, think about the message this sends to Ukraine. The US has long been a staunch supporter of Ukraine's sovereignty, but Trump's abrupt exit might make Ukraine question whether it can still rely on the US for support. This isn't just about one meeting or one leader. It's about the precedent it sets. It's about the kind of world we want to live in. It's about whether we can afford to have leaders who walk out when the going gets tough. So ponder on this, reflect on the kind of leadership the world needs right now, and most importantly, consider what kind of role you think the US should play in the global arena. Please share your thoughts on this matter in the comments section. That's all for today's report. We've witnessed an unparalleled moment in political history where the seat of the United States at the G7 table was filled by none other than President Zelenskyy of Ukraine. This happened as former US President Donald Trump walked out, leaving a void that spoke volumes about his disengagement from global leadership. The world leaders didn't let this deter them. They rallied to support Ukraine, with Canada leading the charge by pledging $2 billion in new military aid. However, the US remained noticeably absent from this collective effort. This incident has raised a significant question. Can the world afford a US president who walks out on crucial global issues? This is a conversation we need to have. Share your thoughts and let's keep this dialogue going. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insightful political news and analysis. Until next time, stay informed.